Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week. And this is the show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between. And this week I have 11 comics to talk about, so kind of a lighter haul, but next week I have an even lighter haul. I think I'm only getting like 8 books next week. Not sure if it's a 5th Wednesday. It's just probably, comics still getting used to its schedule, but let's get into this episode. Number 11 for me this week is the Free Comic Book Day Spider-Man book. So, of course, it's harder to review these because it's $0. It's free, but I did want to cover them because I did cover the other Marvel book and Ranger Slayer, which was really good, and now this one. And the first story is between Black Cat and Spider-Man and Vulture, and it's kind of this one-shot storyline. Doesn't really feel like it's going to tie into anything, and that was a little disappointing because I think with the Free Comic Book Days, for me personally, I like getting a teaser for what's to come, and it's like, oh, that's a cool thing to look forward to. And that's why I like the Dark Ages teaser from last week, because like, oh, I didn't even know this event was going to happen. That was pretty cool. Now, going into the more event-heavy storyline is Venom and Ryan Stegman and Donny Cates' book there. I do not read Venom, so I was kind of lost on that. I've read issues here and there, especially in the beginning, but I discontinued the book. Wasn't really my thing, even though I know a lot of people are loving Venom. But if you're enjoying Venom, I'm sure you're gonna enjoy that storyline. You get some teases for what's to come. But for me, as just a Spider-Man fan, I don't feel like I got too much from this story, which was a little disappointing. But again, it was free. Nothing to lose, but also nothing too much you have to chase for if you couldn't get this issue. So I'm giving that 2 stars, and that is number 11. Moving on to number 10, which is Angel and Spike issue 12. I don't know how to feel about the direction of this book. I don't understand why Spike's in this book, and I feel like, again, the biggest issue of the Buffy series thus far is that it really is for people who have invested their time in Buffy and Angel. Now, I have seen all of Buffy and Angel. I love the franchise, so that's not a problem for me. But I feel like a lot of character beats aren't really written on the page. They take a lot of the character beats from the show that don't exist in the storyline yet and kind of run towards it. A good example of that is Fred in this book, kind of going towards more of the darker side of her character. What was interesting about Fred's journey, Fred had a little bit of darkness towards the beginning, but was how dark she got towards the end of the show. So I think it's missing that element of a starting point and why these characters are so refreshing. Same thing about like Cordelia. What's so great about her character is that she grew a lot as a character, and I feel like the Buffy comics kind of skips that growth and just says, oh, she's a cool gal now and she's all for the Scooby Gang and none of her popularity. Like, that all came after the fact, after she went through some stuff. So I think that's the shame, and we're seeing the same thing here with Angel and Spike. Now, I know they're changing the creative team pretty soon. You can kind of tell as this kind of winds down, and I just think it's getting a little bit too heavy into the mythology, and I just want to see these characters interact with each other and see what their dynamic is, because we really don't know their dynamic in this book of Angel Investigations. So that's kind of the shame of this issue. So overall, I'm going to give Angel and Spike issue 12 2.5 stars. Artwork is pretty solid for this book. I enjoy the style for it, but the story, not quite there for me right now. We'll see what happens with the next creative team. Now moving on to number 9. Number 9 for me, people might be surprised by this. I didn't dislike the book, but I had some hype towards it. And that is Batman issue 95. So this is, I believe, the part 1 for the Joker War, which I was pretty excited for. I enjoyed a lot of what came before with the designer, and especially Catwoman and Harley. I really liked their characters, and I would say their absence was really felt in this issue. Not a ton happens. It's a very big setup issue of Joker taking over the city and Batman going a little crazy. He's been poisoned. He's dreaming of this blue suit that we saw as the $40 cover for this book and was teased. And just not a ton of character beats here besides the Alfred and Batman dynamic, and that Batman misses Alfred, but I don't know if there's any new beats that were really introduced here. I guess it was kind of interesting to see Lucius controlled by the Joker. That was cool. But yeah, it was a kind of a lukewarm part 1 for me. Not saying that's a telltale for the rest of the story arc, but it was a little slower for me. So I'm going to give Batman issue 95 2.5 stars. Artwork was pretty solid overall, but the story, like I said, was a little slower for this one. All right, we are moving on to number... What are we up to? We are up to number 8, and that is Shazam, issue 13. So this is the book that's ending soon. I believe it's ending in like a month. I think next issue might be the last, or the one after that's the last. And it makes it tough to read through a book that you know is ending and got canceled. You know, like, all right, where are we building up to? Especially because there hasn't been much build up plot wise. So there's some good character moments, which is why it's higher this issue than some of the others this week, because there's some really good family themes and Billy dealing with his dad being taken over and not really knowing his dad or his motives, and like, oh no, I think my dad cares for me. So that was interesting, and the family being in danger was cool. The villains though, I mean, obviously they're big Shazam villains or Captain Marvel villains, but they're really not doing it for me. And the teases of the Superboy Prime thing, which I know people are excited for, I don't know if I can get excited. A, I'm not a huge Superboy Prime fan, so I don't have a connection to it. But then B, it's just like, you got one more issue left. What are we doing with it? Where are we teasing this for? Or what are we teasing it for? So, yeah, I gave this 3 stars. Artwork was good. I like that it was somewhat consistent. There was like one artist, I think, that did like 2 pages, which... Oh, actually, it's been the same artist. Maybe it's a different... There's one page that looked a little different. I'll show you the page, if I can find it. But actually, we had consistent artwork, which was nice, because we have not been getting consistent artwork for this book. But yeah, it was a fun, action-packed issue, but I don't know where it's going. I'm going to stick around with it just because it has 2 more issues left. It's a shame that I feel like this book really just started to pick up, and now it's already ending. So Shazam issue 13 gets 3 stars, and that is number 8, I believe. All right, moving on to number 7, which is The Amazing Spider-Man Sins Rising Prelude issue 1. So this issue was interesting. Very, very, very different from what we've been getting with Spider-Man. They even mentioned it in the end of this issue. It's a lot darker. For sure. It's very street level, feels kind of like Daredevil-ish in some ways, very pulpy, which I didn't know how to feel about. Like, it just felt like kind of jarring. I understood why they were doing it, but I don't know if it really helped matters for the book. I don't know if I really care about Sin Eater as a character. I know they're connecting it to old storylines, and I guess Nick Spencer wanted to fill in gaps from old storylines and was invested in that, but I'm not really feeling it. I'm not feeling the connection right now, or the character, and this issue that, tries to make you feel for him, and you get a little backstory of him, doesn't quite do it for me. It was okay. It just kind of was missing the emotional punch I wanted. I think it referenced some interesting points in Spider-Man's life, but not enough for me to be convinced that we need this storyline and need this now, especially with, I know he's going to be connected to Kindred, but I just want to know who Kindred is. Like, I want to know that storyline before I got to be introduced to another character with Sin Eater. So I'm going to give this 3 stars. It was very interesting to see it attached to a previous Spider-Man storyline, even showing those pages. I thought it was really cool. I like the darker tone, just not for the story. So again, giving this 3 stars. Artwork was very grounded, very street level. Again, enjoyed that for the story it was going for. Just don't know if I enjoyed the story it was going for. So I'm going to give that 3 stars, and that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, which is a surprise here. This was pretty good. Empyre XMen issue 1. I shouldn't say it's a surprise because I like X-Men. I've enjoyed Hickman's X-Men. The reason it's a surprise is because I do not like Empyre. I actually dropped Empyre. You will not see Empyre issue 2 on this list because I didn't pick it up. You will see another Empyre title. And one thing I mentioned, I am getting some miniseries and some tie-ins. Like, I'm reading Captain Marvel, so I'm going to get the Empyre tie-in. But I just don't need to follow the main event. If something big happens, I'm sure I'll find out what happened. But yeah, Empyre X-Men, the reason I like this and was surprised by it is it's really not attached to Empyre, like, at all. It's really an X-Men book, and interestingly enough, I think there's like actually a lot going on where I'm like, whoa, if someone just skipped this because they're not reading Empyre, they might be missing out on an X-Men story that connects to the main title. There's a really good opener here with Scarlet Witch and her wanting redemption, as always, for her sins of House of M, and she's going through the motions with that, and we get a little bit of a glimpse of X-Corp finally being mentioned, or like, is it X-Corporation or is it actually X-Corp? I think it's X-Corp. But yeah, we finally get a mention of that. I don't know if that book's actually happening. They announced that there was going to be an X-Corp book, and with COVID and all that, I think they might have canceled some of the X-Men books. I don't know. Don't confirm me on that, but I don't know if we're ever going to get it. But we are getting references of it, and in this story. So definitely, again, something like, oh, this is kind of important. Might be bigger than an X-Men Empire miniseries, but it's also nice to get something in a miniseries and make it feel worthwhile to get a story like this. But yeah, the Scarlet Witch stuff really interested me. I like the team they picked, Angel, Magic. I always love seeing Ileana. I think Jonathan Hickman writes her hysterically, so always enjoy her. And we get to see the old ladies again from, I believe, X-Men. They appeared. We get some stuff with the flowers and all that fun jazz. And these zombie mutants. That was really interesting. I'm curious if that's connected to House of M. I didn't personally make the connection if it is or isn't. But there's millions of these mutant zombies. So is it like connected to that somehow? Like, how is Scarlet Witch's redemption story going to be connected to all of this? So yeah, I thought it was a really interesting issue. Artwork is a little bit weaker than what we would normally get from an X-Men book. It's a little bulkier, but interesting stuff. Definitely gave me enough for issue 2, and nice that it wasn't too Empyre heavy, and I like that. But for you guys just picking this up for Empyre, sorry. X-Men issue 1 gets 3.5 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is Chew issue 1. So, background, I've never read Chew. I know what it's about. You know, I've heard of the series, of course, but I've never read an issue, and I thought this was a pretty cool jumping on point. So I picked it up and thought it was pretty good. It took a little while to get to the point, I would say. Like, I don't know if it was really character building too much. There was this heist that lasts a long time in the book, and we meet Chew, this Chew, and we learn a little bit about the main character, Chew, and he has this family dinner he has to go to, and by the end of the issue, we learn that Saffron and Tony are siblings, and that's why they have this same power, but they're both on the different sides of the law. One's a criminal who was part of that heist, and the other one's a cop. And I thought that was really cool, and I love the cartoony nature of this, for sure. I think that's what I enjoyed the most, was just how animated the whole entire book was. Definitely some slow parts here, but that cliffhanger is like, okay, I'm gonna get issue 2. That's pretty interesting. So Chew issue 1 gets 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4. I'm actually surprised this made it to my top 5, because I was like, man, I don't even really remember this book that much, because it came out so long ago. Why does it matter? And that is X-Men Fantastic Four, issue 4. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot of moving parts that do not connect to what's going on in Marvel Comics right now. You have Kitty Pryde is still around, right? You have the Fantastic Four and X-Men battling it out, while the Fantastic Four is actually dealing with Empyre stuff. So it all feels like, okay, this is like too late to tell this story. But I enjoyed it. I actually thought there were some good character beats, which I shouldn't be surprised by, because Chip Zdarsky is the writer for this book. But I liked Kitty and Franklin's connection. I liked that the Fantastic Four kind of start to realize that Franklin should embrace his mutant side and have a right to learn more from Krakoa. But as you think they're like on the same side, this is the new X-Men. They do not care for humans. So I like the ending, and I think it was an interesting dynamic between the famous human superheroes of the Marvel Universe and obviously the X-Men, and seeing their different ideologies clash as they have to fight Doctor Doom. So it was a good action issue. Again, you gotta really think of it as out of continuity at this point because it's just so late to have this story. There's so many other things going on, but it was a good story, which I appreciate. Artwork is not quite my thing. I do think it's a little too expressive at times. I'm not a huge fan of this style, but overall it works for the book. So I'm going to give X-Men Fantastic Four issue 4 3.5 stars, like I said, and that is number 4 actually. Moving on to number 3, which is another Empyre book. And again, didn't need to read Empyre to enjoy this, and that is Emperor Hulking issue 1. I got this because I am a huge Young Avengers fan. I really enjoy Teddy's character. And the reason I even picked up Empyre to begin with, to try it out, was because I knew Teddy was going to be the center of this story. And like I said, I'm a huge Young Avengers fan. And if you are a fan of Teddy and Wiccan, it's a really good issue. You get to see how Teddy came to be this leader of this whole entire Empyre event. And, how his heart is dealing with that, and that his leadership he's doing is not really his true motives. He really just wants peace. He doesn't want war, but he's probably going to get stuck in war a little bit here. And I really like the small moments we get to see between Wiccan and Hulking. I really don't feel like we get enough of them together as a couple, because they're always like doing something else separate from each other. So it's nice to get those small moments between them and just enjoying their relationship. We get some cameos from some Young Avengers characters, which was nice. If you're a Young Avengers fan, I think it piggybacks off that title pretty well, especially because the mom died in that book, and we get some references to his mother, some references to his father. So I thought it was a really solid issue. I was pretty pleasantly surprised. I actually feel like this should have been released before Empyre, before you got into the event, because you get a lot more of the emotional resonance and emotional beats with this book compared to the actual event book. But the artwork was really solid for this book too. I enjoyed that. I think it worked. And overall, did it make me want to read Empyre? No. But did it make me enjoy these characters and, characters I've already enjoyed? Yeah, it's definitely a good one-shot standalone story in that regard. So I'm going to give this 4 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2. And I think this is going to surprise people, because this has actually been pretty low on my list as of lately, and I'm glad it's higher, and that is Batgirl issue 47. So this is the Joker War tie-in, and I enjoyed this issue. I don't know if it was a perfect issue, and I'll get into that, but it is the Joker breaking into Batgirl's apartment again, now knowing that, we don't know if he didn't know back then, but it's confirmed that he knows that Barbara Gordon is Batgirl, and he's utilizing her to try to hack into Batman's computer and bring more devastation for the Joker War. And by the first couple of pages, he ruins her implant to make her walk, and this whole issue is her on the ground fighting him with her mind and with her wits, and Joker keeps talking down on her, and she plays this up and is able to fight Joker. The things I didn't love was the controlling of her body. Felt a little weird. I do think they make up for it in the end, where Batgirl's like, nah, no one controls me, and she like stabs her own back and says, I can do this because my family has my back. I thought it was a good moment. But I hope this continues in the next part, because the end of the issue is just Joker and Batgirl lying on the ground with each other laughing, which I enjoyed that moment too, because it does remind me a little bit of the ending of The Killing Joke. We won't get into the actual Killing Joke and the problems that happened with Barbara, but between Batman and the Joker, how they kind of laugh at the same thing. And there's this idea of, which again, do not know how I feel about this, but the Joker saying, well, you're just like your brother. You also are just as psychotic as the rest of us. And I find that interesting just because there's a parallel between Batman and Joker kind of having that same ideal of that's the end of The Killing Joke, is that the reason that they fight each other is because they understand each other the most from totally different directions. So in that regard, I enjoyed it, and I like those little beats of it, and I like that Batgirl was able to control her own body by the end, which was good. But again, I didn't really love that he was controlling it in the first place. And then yeah, they're just both bleeding out in the end of the issues. I hope we piggyback after that. I'm a little unsatisfied with it, but I did like that Joker said, "Oh, never mind, you actually are the best Robin and best sidekick." So I like that. I love the art. I'm a huge Spider-Gwen fan, so it was cool to see Robbie Rodriguez do a special guest pencil here for this story, and I think it works for, Spider-Gwen's already pretty angsty. This is a very angsty issue, so I like that, and there was a lot of good action sequences, especially just the fighting sequences of Barbara, losing control of her legs and being able to still very much use her strength to fight Joker and be able to prop herself up and punch him, I thought was really, really good. And I enjoyed that. And there was a lot of reminders of Oracle there in this issue as well, the stuff that we really love about Oracle. So I like the inner monologue in this issue. I thought was really good. So overall, again, this is not a perfect issue by any means, and I think there could have been things that could have been done better to have Barbara have more control in this issue, just because it's such a big moment of her going against the Joker. But it was nice to kind of retell the Killing Joke and give Barbara power here, and I enjoyed that aspect of the book, and again, I like the artwork for it as well. So I'm going to give this 4 stars. I thought it was a pretty solid issue, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, and that is Power Rangers Ranger Slayer issue 1. I've been so excited for this book. I am a huge Kimberly fan, and obviously I love the Power Rangers, and I'm a very big fan of this creative team, and it's the original creative team of Go-Go Power Rangers, which I love that series as well, and I think this is just a really good last chapter for Kimberly, at least for this creative team. We get to see Kim come back to the Coinless universe, and things are still in shambles, and she's looking for forgiveness. She's not even looking for forgiveness, honestly. I think she even understands if her friends don't forgive her. But I love the moment where Bulk is like, nah, I know she's mind control. Like, this is our friend. We're going to help her out, and we're going to work together to fight Rita, who comes back. And we get to see definitely a bit more of a political lens and a more war-driven lens of the book. And they defeat Rita, and by the end, Kimberly becomes the leader, which I loved. I thought that was such a cool way to end her story. A character, the Pink Ranger, who's never been a leader of the team. She's always been one of the head honchos, at least by the end of the season 3. Once you get to the new Rangers, she's taken a leadership role, but she was never a leader, and to have a female leader of the Power Rangers was really cool. And I also like these small moments and these really interesting thematic aspects where we get to see Trini, we find out is the person kind of behind bringing Rita back. Obviously, she does it because she's like, oh, I thought this would help. I thought I could redeem Rita. And it's interesting that she actually made that choice. And you look at Kim, who's definitely had a lot of blame for reasons, who was under mind control. She couldn't even control that aspect of her, and she's being blamed for the results that she did. So seeing kind of this morally gray storyline between all the Rangers to try to do the right thing, because this is a really morally gray world that they live in. And like I said before, what I find very interesting about this story compared to any other Power Ranger story we've seen thus far is that all the other Power Rangers books, no matter what, they're still very superhero-esque and very bright in that regard. But this felt very warlike. They didn't feel like superheroes, they felt like soldiers. And I thought that was just a really interesting take on the Power Rangers and the different direction that they took the characters. So I really enjoyed this issue. I enjoyed the overall arc for Kimberly. It was interesting to see that the supporting characters were definitely had more of a spotlight than I expected. I actually wanted maybe a little bit more from Kimberly and her own inner turmoil. I think we got a lot of that from outside perspectives. I really wanted to see a bit more of an inner journey that we got to see at the beginning of the issue, and I wanted to see that even more, and hopefully in the future we will. But I liked seeing the supporting characters, and again, I was pleasantly surprised to have them, and Bulk was definitely great in this issue, and the surprise friendship between Bulk and Kimberly has been amazing, and I love how Ryan writes Trini. I think he does such a good job at writing Trini and unlocking potential that no one has unlocked for that character, and again, just seeing the different layers of her in this issue was really, really cool. In artwork, man, again, it goes back to this kind of darker, more grim world, and Dan Mora does such a good job, and it's the action, man. I love the style of Kimberly in this issue. I love her arrows. I thought was really cool. It's like these light beams, I guess we'll call it, but I love that, and I think this issue had a really good mixture of action and emotional beats, and yeah, it's worth what is it, $7.99? Definitely worth it, and I really enjoyed this issue. So now's my pick of the week. I give that 4.5 stars. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of the comics this week? Definitely go follow me on Twitter or Facebook. Go check out my comics like Father Like Daughter and They Call Her the Dancer. And every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time is our comic book podcast where we discuss our favorite comics and comic book news. Thanks, guys. Bye.